everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of Four Friends in a Book podcast. My name is Chris Colson, and of course, I'm joined here with my friends Isaiah Tukes, Kimberly Lake, Laria Reed, and this book for the month of May, Yellow
Mhm,
Wife by Sadeqa Johnson.
mhm,
So, if you guys are new to the channel, new to Four Friends in the Book, we are a monthly podcast, and we meet here each month to kind of read and review a book, um, and just kind of have a just a discussion about that book,
mhm.
and also talk about things that may or may not relate to it. And of course, at the end, we hit you guys with this rant from none other than Mr. Rant Man himself, Mr. Isaiah Took. So again, Four Friends in a Book. We're a book club, book review mixed with just table talk amongst friends. So if you're
Mhm,
new to the channel, please go back, catch up, get current with Four Friends in a Book. Tell
mhm.
a friend to tell a friend, and just again, just catch up and get current with us over here on Four Friends in the Book. We read good books and we have great conversations as well. So let's not delay any further. Let's jump into this book. We are in the I guess historical fiction category for this month.
Yes.
Um, so Yellow Wife by Miss Sadeqa Johnson. Um, good book, good book. You know, I always say that starting out
Yeah.
until we rip it apart or bless it over here. But I personally thought it was a good selection. So again, kind of a historical fiction set in the kind of 19th century, so 1850 time period. So of course we're talking about kind of the antebellum South, slavery, and the
Mhm,
premise of the book is kind of centered around Miss Phoebe Dolores Brown. She is a enslaved person, um,
mhm,
and we kind of go on this journey of her life. Really starting out being enslaved. She is a mulatto, as they called him at the time. Her father is actually her slave owner. Her mother was enslaved as well. Going through this journey of her being later on, I guess, moved or sold to a new, not really a plantation, but to a jail almost, and later on becoming the mistress of that jail. So just a eventful book, a lot of turns, a lot of twists in it. And again, it's a historical fiction, but I was very pleasantly surprised to know that Miss Sadiqa Johnson actually um, captured a lot of reality and actual history within this book. A lot of her characters are based on real people at the time.
mhm.
Even this jail known as the Devil's Half Acre is a real place in Virginia. So she puts her fictional twist on it, but it's very highly rooted in a lot of actual history. So let's jump into the book. Let's unpack it. Let's review it. Let's get into the discussion. If you guys know what it is over here on Four Friends in a Book, uh, so starting out, if you had to rate this book on a scale of 1 to 10, what would that be? And also, just overall, what was your opinions, thoughts, impressions about this book, Yellow Wife by Miss Sadiqa Johnson? And I'm coming to Miss Kimberly Lake on this one to kick this show out. What did you think about this book?
Well, I enjoyed the book. I thought it was a good book. I actually read this book, so I didn't listen to it on Audible, but I read it. And to me, it was like a page turner. Like it kept me interested in like going to the next chapter. I didn't feel like bored or anything like that. I do like how Sadiqa Johnson wrote her characters in the book overall. Even though the subject matter is hard to hear about, I still think that she did a great job capturing that era and those characters because it seemed like they're realistic characters that would be back in the day. So I enjoyed the book. I actually would give the book because I'm the fiction girl of the group. I would give it like an 8.5.
Mhm.
I thought it was good, and you have to do a point. So 8.5 is
These half steals, there y'all go.
I would give it that, and I would recommend this book to other people, and it made me want to read her other books because I know she has a couple
Mhm.
more. So I
Okay.
enjoyed her as an author, and I enjoyed the book.
We got this 8.5 from Kimberly Lake. Look, we try to keep whole numbers up here, but every time it never fails. Somebody come in with these little points or whatever. So Starting the show off with an 8.5. Okay. All right. So coming to my brother Isaiah Tukes, man. What did you think about this book? And if you had to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10 or 0 to 10, what would that
Mm-hmm.
be?
Well, my viewpoint differs a little bit from Kim. Overall, it was an okay book. Like you said, Chris, it's the Yellow Wife. It centers around this slave, Phoebe Dolores Brown. She grew up on a plantation in Virginia. She was promised actually freedom on her 18th birthday. She was, sent off to this jail on the Devil's Landing. I forgot what the name of that particular jail is. But overall, it was just this was a real tough read. I don't know why it affected me like this because I read so many African American literature, but it was just something about this book that it was just too much. The beatings, you beating a woman pregnant until her baby slides down. Essex got beaten in his back. I know we're gonna talk about that soon as later too as well. Like it was just too much. She saw her mom get sexual assaulted. She got sexual assaulted. Her son got taken out. Of like every time I was trying to read this book and thinking like Kim said, it was a page turner, but it was too much. I kept throwing it down like I'm not reading this. This was just like too much on me. Like, overall, I think because I have such a vivid imagination, I kept seeing myself in this room. I kept seeing myself in these people because she wrote this book. I can't take that away from her. She really wrote this book. It was just like too much for me. I don't think I can ever pick that book back up again. It was like too vivid, too fictional, too real. I read other African American literature before, but I don't know. It was just something about this book. Like it just did something to me. Like, this lady basically what I liked about Phoebe, and I want to say this, that even though she was a slave, she said to her mom she was never a slave. You can never break her. Like my grandparents always told me, I come from kings and queens from Africa. I don't even deal with the slave. I come from kings and queens. That's why my history lies. But the slave mentality, I could not take it at all. I don't know why it affect me. I rate this book a 4.5. It was not definite
Said
because of
he
she did
said
not write it. It just that I could not. Once I was trying to get into it, I was really trying to get into it, but it was just like this is not for me. This has become too much. You literally raping this woman every single night when you come home, like she dealing with your mustard self on top of her. Like I know she wanted to fight back, and like it was just too much. Like you beating these people, this jail owner. Like we're gonna really talk about him because I have an issue with this guy right here. Like you said, he was the hellraiser. Like everybody feared him, but it just took somebody to really go toe to toe with you. Like I know it couldn't be me back in that day because you just would have just basically just shot me because this is just too much on my end. Like it was a good book, it just wasn't for me. Like I kept seeing myself in these character fiction like Essence. You left him in that room. I'm in that barn. You didn't feed them, bathe them. You got flies and gnats crawling all around him. Like how cruel can you be? Like I know it's fictional, but it was just a lot for me on my end. Maybe somebody got different opinion than me, but that 4.5 sticks for me in my head.
Okay. So yeah. Yeah, Isaiah, look, half of Kim's rating over here, but I think you bring up some good points, and I
Mhm.
we can kind of expand and talk about that as well.
Yeah, I just want to give them all away before.
Yeah, and I think that is the difficult part,
Uh huh.
especially
Mhm.
knowing our history within this country.
Mm-hmm.
This was a fictional book, but it is rooted in history, and
Mm-hmm.
so I think some of the things that Sadiqa highlighted and brought out were factual events and kind of the lifestyles and of the people at those times, and so I can understand how those things could be triggering, especially if you're putting yourself in those positions or even thinking about that this was
Mm-hmm.
actually someone's lifestyle. But I appreciate your input, man. That was
Mhm.
good. And I know some people really do have a hard time watching movies from this time period or reading books from this time period because there are so many cruel and graphic things that are almost dehumanizing that took place. And so I definitely understand your sentiment in regard in that area. So all right, so coming to Miss Laria Reed next. Did you feel the same way as Isaiah? Like, what were your thoughts overall about this book? And if you had to rate it, what would that be?
I really enjoyed the book. It was very vivid. I felt like every time I listened on Audible, when I was listening, I felt like I was there. Like I had a whole movie going on in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first thing I thought was this needs to be a movie. Yes, it
Mhm.
was graphic. It was very vivid, but it made me feel like I was on the plantation. I was there the whole time. I mean, this girl wrote this book. What's her name again?
Mm-hmm.
Sadiqa
Sadeqa Johnson.
Yeah,
Sadiqa,
she wrote it
Sadiqa,
now.
you did that. You
She
wrote
wrote
that
that
book,
book.
girl.
She wrote
She
that book.
wrote this book. It was good. It was very good. I mean, I couldn't stop. I was at work
Hmm.
like, let me listen. I was like a little crackhead. Like, I gotta listen to this. This is so good. It was
Yeah.
very well written. The way she developed each character, I like the way
Hmm.
she did that because if you think about it, she had a lot of characters, but the way that she spaced them and developed them as she went, I just enjoyed it. And it's funny how we're all saying Phoebe Dolores Brown because she kept saying that was her name the whole
Uh-huh.
time. I enjoyed the way,
Uh-huh.
yes, it was a lot of sexual assault, but if you're honest about slavery, that's the way it was. And I
Hmm.
think
Mhm.
that it was so realistic until you're like, man, this is what these women had to endure. And I'm sure even for Isaiah being a man, having to hear somebody being sexually assaulted over and over, the mom, that's the way it was in that time. And people love sugarcoating like slavery was just, people just had to
Hmm.
work and they weren't paid.
Mhm.
No, we're talking about people being enslaved, people being beaten, whipped, mixed children who are halfway treated, certain ways and not certain. It was a lot and it was bad. So I think that it was a great reminder of how slavery was, but it still gave a realistic view of how a woman during that time had to navigate to try to keep her life and keep her sanity and take care of her children at the same time. I mean, it was like a whole game.
Mhm.
Her whole life was a game basically. And
Hmm.
yeah, but I give it a 8. It was a great, great book. It was great.
Okay, it's good. Yeah, Larry, I think you bring up some good points. It is tough and it's difficult to kind of hear and read these things, but I mean that was the reality of that time, and so I think when you step into this realm of, even though it's a fiction book, but it's a historical fiction, so
Mhm.
you're still telling truths and you're still painting the pictures of what um, the scene was at that time period, and to Isaiah's point, there were some tough and difficult points throughout this book. But I think sometimes we can't sugarcoat these things. We have to be very transparent and kind of really detail even some of those kind of small nuances that we may not even think about. Like to Laria's point, Phoebe was having to kind of play this role similar to what her mother did. Her mother kind of fell victim to the same thing as well. She ends up, you know, I'm pretty sure not by her choice, but ends up in a sexual relationship with her master, and that's how Phoebe gets here. And then later on down the line, Phoebe she succumbs to the same kind of outcome as well because like that was what was necessary to kind of ensure survival, to ensure a certain way of life at that time. um and even just the brutality of what slavery and enslavement looked like.
Hmm.
I think it gives the awareness, and like I say, I think we as people kind of know, but still hearing these things,
Mhm.
it's a lot. It's definitely a lot, but I think Sadeqa Johnson did a great job um, laying this book out. Like I'm a history guy as well, so I definitely love the historical aspect of it. And like I said, I think uh, it was rooted in a lot of actual truths and things of that time period. And so I appreciated that part of it, of her really giving an accurate description or depiction of what was going on and how people had to navigate, those different scenarios. So I thoroughly enjoyed the book. I thought it was very well written. I was very impressed that she literally um, discovered this
Hmm.
this
Hmm.
jail in Virginia
Hmm.
on a tour, and she went into kind of research mode and kind of kept digging into it, and really that was the premise of this book within itself, to kind of pull out this whole screen of the yellow wife and what that could have been, and just how those relationships may have happened. Literally taking actual people, so Robert Lumpkin, Mary Lumpkin, of Virginia, who were the actual owners of this jail. Again, a mixed race couple, not necessarily by choice, but and even at that time, that was kind of unheard of. You didn't have, I mean, marriages of opposite races were not allowed, and so her to kind of really just find this story and to develop it into a book, I thought she did a great job. Character development, just overall story was good. So if I had to rate it, I think I would give it an 8 as well. Good book, good book in my opinion. Like, of course, I love the historical aspect of it, and just kind of how she, I guess, strung things along with the characters and the story as well. So we've kind of talked on it, and there's a talked on about Phoebe a good bit so far. And again, she's the main character within the book, and we kind of just follow her journey. As Isaiah mentioned, I mean, she starts out on a plantation at the age of 18, and supposedly, her father. So again, her master is going to free her and send her off to school at some point. But then there's a twist and turns of events where that doesn't happen, and she gets sent off by
Mm-hmm.
the 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 slave owner's wife, and just almost as a almost like as some kind of retribution or like a an attack against her or whatever. It was kind of weird, but gets sent off to this jailer and then has to kind of fend and figure out her next step as well. So, and in the end ended up being the kind of the owner. I mean, she's wielded this property in the end. So we just really go on this whole story of Phoebe and her life. I kind of want to get you guys' opinion as far as your thoughts about her as a character, and how it changed throughout the novel. Like, did that was that pretty consistent as far as your thoughts about her and what she was kind of forced to do, and sometimes kind of just took upon herself to do, and just even just overall, like I said, the development of her as a character, as from again going from this 18-year-old enslaved woman to now being the mistress of the Lapierre jail, also known as a Devil's Half Acre. So
Mm-hmm.
I just want to get you guys' thoughts on that. So I can remember Brother Isaiah on that one, man. What were your thoughts about Phoebe Dolores Brown and just her evolution throughout this book, The Yellow Wife by Miss Sadeqa Johnson?
Now, what I do enjoy, because I do love that character, Phoebe Dolores Brown, and you have to say it like she did because she didn't play about her name. That her name was her identity, and I like that she stood on that. Like we like to actually we grew up with her. Basically, we saw her come up from the first plantation, even though she got sent away to the second plantation. Like she didn't change. She always had that same drive that her mother actually instilled in her. Even like the child, like even when the first, I think one of the slaves actually told her that she was pregnant, she didn't even understand what that was. I think they were calling like, "You're not bleeding, girl." He was like, "Well, no, ma'am, I haven't bled in 3 months," and that's when she realized she was pregnant. So we actually saw her innocence, and we had actually saw her actually grow up, and she had these children, and she had to figure life out, and she had to figure life out really really fast. And I like that, like she said, even though she was a slave, her mind, she was never a slave. Even to her children, you don't say ain't, isn't. You use correct English. I don't care because of what people think of us. It always in me of what I think of myself. And I like how she actually stood on it. Even though this was a fictional character, I actually saw a lot of her bravery. I saw a lot of her tenacity. I saw a lot of her character in me. So that's why I actually connected with that part of it. But one thing I did not at the end of the book, like, when she actually got this property willed to her, her youngest daughter actually stayed there. They reinvented this property, but those three older children, I didn't like that you pretended to be full white and you left your mama there. Now I don't understand why little girls usually leave their mama, and you left your mama to be a whole white lady. Like, why are you doing that? Like,
They said
like
we ain't
come,
about
like
that
come
life.
on. We not about that. Like, we don't leave our mama, but you left your mama. But it was interesting. I like that we actually had to grow up with her. Phoebe was all right with me. Like, she stood on her wheel. She kept to true to her belief. She kept her mama instilled in her, and I like that about her. Like the bravery, the strong tenacity that she had. Like she actually put that a lot into her girl. She like, y'all come from a line of lineage of strong, beautiful women. Like, don't ever take that just for. And that's why I was actually taken aback when they left at the very end. Like, how do you do you abandon your mama like that? But she still made it through her and that younger child, and she still kept it going because she is Phoebe Dolores Brown.
Yeah, that's good.
Oh, I
bring up a
mean
lot
to
of
go
good
on
points.
I mean to keep going
That's
on like
that's fine.
that.
Laria, what were your thoughts? And again, I think we all, if you read the book, and even if you guys have read it as well, our viewers and listeners, let us know in the comments, what you thought about Phoebe as a person, as a character. Like, give us some feedback. Even as well, what you would overall rate this book. So we know my boy Isaiah, he a little outlier on this era, this review itself. But we would love to hear from you guys as well. What you thought of this book, and if you had to rate it, on a scale of 1 to 10, what that would be, what
Mhm.
would that be as well? But
Mhm.
coming to Loria next, what were your thoughts about this character? Again, the main character of the book, really kind of the focal point, and we just really go on this journey of her life. Did your opinion change about her? Was it pretty consistent? Like, what did you think about Miss Phoebe Dolores Brown throughout this novel?
I think that she was going back to the beginning when she's a young girl and she's learned how to read thanks to her aunt who's white, who teaches
Mhm.
her how to play the piano. She's
Mhm.
accomplished, and that made for someone not liking her, which was the wife of the master. And
Mhm.
she's the master's child. So of course she's not gonna like her. But I really liked Phoebe, and I'm gonna tell you when. When her mama died, she saw her mom pass away. Excuse me. She saw her mom pass away. Then she gets, they're at the funeral, and then she hears all these horses coming, and then she gets sent into slavery where she has to march for 8 days and all this to be sold. And she still at that point, the part that I really liked was when she's on the auction block and she stands up for herself, is like, I'm not taking my clothes off. Like,
Yeah,
you see what I can do. I'm not taking
Yeah,
my clothes
Phoebe.
off. And they're like, girl, you gonna get beat. Da 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 da. But that's what separated her from all the other, other women that were there, was she had standards, and she said, look, I have walked 8 days in shackles and all this stuff. Like, I don't care anymore. Like, if you want to
There
kill
you
me,
go.
gonna kill me, but I'm not taking my
Mhm.
clothes off. And she
Mhm.
described the woman before her and how she had to just strip naked, and she was just like, "No, I've never done that. I'm not doing it." And I believe that's what really set her life up to be better than what it would have been. Because I mean, she it's kind of like, she had a choice between a brick wall and another, which
Mhm.
brick wall you want to choose.
Mhm.
But for her, I feel like that was the better of the life that she
Mhm.
chose. But it really taught me a lot about what her mom had instilled in her as a woman. That even though you're being auctioned off, you've gone through all these things, you still don't lower your standards for other people. In front of all these men, you just gonna take your clothes off? No, no, thank you. You can go on and kill me, and that's the
Right
way she
here.
was. And I think even throughout the book,
Mhm.
you saw how she would stand up for herself. She used wisdom a lot of times, like, let me make sure I keep my son, near me. Let me make sure I not do nothing too far. Let me kiss him this time, even though I don't want to. It's horrible. Let me go into another place in my mind to keep this situation okay. And she did what she had to do, as so many women have done during that time. So even though it was a character, I feel like that was somebody during that time.
Mhm.
And she really did what she had to do without lowering herself, if that
Mhm.
makes sense.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, Larry, I think you do a really a good kind of recount and capture of Phoebe Dolores Brown as a person, because I think that is a reality of people and especially women having to navigate tough situations and really to make the best of it. And
Mhm.
so, of course, she goes on this evolution in this journey, but I think it's really for the greater good. And I think it's tough decisions. I mean, again, we're talking about the South, Virginia, people being enslaved, beating, like killed. Um, as you mentioned, even being put on the auction block and being treated as animals. I mean, open your mouth, show me your teeth. Turn
Mhm.
around, be naked to kind of see. Almost as they're treating them like they, horses or any other animal to kind of before they are sold off to another slave owner. And so I think her dignity and just her morals really stood out throughout this book. Even starting from her early age and just her, getting some of those insights to learn how to read, to play the piano, And I think they kind of instilled a certain sense of pride within her that she didn't, even though she was enslaved, that she wasn't going to allow, that environment to belittle her to the point of just she losing her self dignity. And even I
Most
agree with you as
definitely.
well. Like that was a kind of a high point through the book of her really standing on business. Like, look, I'm not getting naked. I'm not doing it. Like, yeah, I'm
Hmm.
already have been, put in a bad situation. And if you guys want to make it worse, and it's just gonna have to be what it is. But even her navigating into Isaiah's point, like having to sleep with the jailer, and of course,
Hmm.
going through that psychological warfare because of course she didn't want to do it, but it's like to ensure a quality of life for herself, a quality of life for her children, even a quality of life for Monty, which wasn't the jailer's, child, and she's bringing this child along with her, but to ensure that he's not sold. And that was one of her bargaining
Hmm.
tips, with the jailer was like, look, if we do this, you can never sell my son away. Um, and so again, just speaking to the testament of motherhoods and what women, people of color in general, especially people that were enslaved, like what they had to endure at that time, just to have
Mm-hmm.
a piece of quality, not even just a quality of life, but just a small like speck of it to ensure that their children and their people after them would have a better chance. I mean, that's the same thing her mother did, and so um, I think she was definitely put in tough situations, but I think
Mm-hmm.
she just really did what was necessary to ensure her survival and the survival of the people that were around her and her kids. So um, I didn't have a negative opinion about her. I just think like so many other black women and just people of color and in general that she had to make the best of what she had during those times, and she did the best that she could. So coming to Miss Kimberly Lake next. So, just overall thoughts and opinions about the character. We've kind of touched on the evolution of her as a character, but just what are your thoughts and opinions, I guess, as a whole about Miss Phoebe Dolores Brown and how Miss Sadeqa Johnson really kind of, I guess, characterized her throughout this book, Yellow Wife.
I agree with you all about what you said about her, but what stood out to me most about her was her being a mother. I thought she was a really great mom. Like when she had kids looking out for her son and her children. I love how she always put them first. She was always looking out for them, her son. She like was teaching him how to read in secret, making sure he could like navigate life, that he was smart, he knew how to read, and he knew who he was. And even her daughters, them knowing who they were, and also teaching her daughters, when her daughter started kind of like looking down on the son and like, they say little sly stuff, she would like correct them, be like, look, we ain't looking down on them. So I just really thought she was a really great mom. And we're coming up
Mm-hmm.
on Mother's Day, so I was like, what I really liked about her was just the motherhood, and like she represented like the sacrifice of mothers, and in the end she had to let her son go, but she's like, I got to stay here with my other daughters, but I want you to be free. And she even covering the secret of, Isaiah hated that part of her daughters passing, the ones that did pass, but even like allowing her daughters to have that life and keeping that secret. So I just really thought she got that from her mom, because her mom was a great mom in the book. So I think she carried
Mm-hmm.
that on to her children. Hopefully her children carried that on, to their kids. But I just really loved her as a mother in the book.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's good. Yeah. And so we've kind of alluded to it and talked about it a little bit. I mean, again, we're talking about slavery in the South, this antebellum time period. Some of the ritualistic activities of just, being on an auction block, you know, moving from plantation to plantation. Just some of the activities that we know of that we've kind of seen in movies and also read in books as well. But
Mm-hmm.
what are your guys' thoughts as far as how Sadiqa really kind of painted the picture of like the antebellum South? Was it really on par and on track with what you guys have kind of historically known about that time period? And also, I guess, gather any new insight about that era? And so again, we're talking about early kind of 19th century, 1800s time period. Again, just the kind of the height of slavery, and just that time period. It's kind of the slight difference because she kind of covered like the plantation life of being like out in the country, but also being in like the kind of the city life of being in the city as well. So, did you gain any new insight or just what were your overall thoughts about how she painted the scene, of that era? And so, come on to Miss Laria Reed on this one. What were your thoughts about just how Miss Sadeqa Johnson kind of laid this whole antebellum South out, or this period out within this book, and also that you learned anything new about that era as well?
Okay. Well, she did a great job. Whatever I was thinking, she described it to the T. She did a great job of being descriptive of what it
Uh-huh.
was, being in Virginia when she was, sold into slavery and just everything. And one thing that I did learn is, I've heard about auction blocks and how they do it, but I didn't realize there was like this lengthy process of how they had them come in, clean themselves up, they had somebody sew dresses to put on them. It was
Uh-huh.
different people
Right.
for
What?
different things. And just the whole process of selling a person and how they
Mm-hmm.
did that was just like kind of okay. Because we don't think in processes when we hear somebody's being sold. It's kind of like so outlandish. I'm thinking they just brought them up and they just, here I got these people, but I didn't realize it was like a whole money making. And I knew it was money making, but I didn't
Mm-hmm.
realize the jailer stayed there. They beat
Mm-hmm.
people. You could sell them and say, hey, this person's giving me trouble. You can hold them for this amount of time and I'll come back and get them or sell them off. That kind of thing. It's like, whoa, that is crazy. And to, for me to even fathom in today's mindset. So for her to be to describe the way that she did and the process of how it happened, just really, I was just kind of blown away in that sense of how things were and the beatings and then describing the whips and all that is just and then beating kids basically. They're young and they're getting whipped and having, and he even said, Essex can go outside, which is a 5-year old. He should start being able to, you know, work in the field now. And I'm thinking a 5-year old, like, oh my God, they really started these kids young as a slave. So it was a lot. It was a whole lot. But like I said, Miss Johnson, girl, you did what you had to do on this book, honey. I mean, it was good. It was good and it was enlightening. And I think everybody should read this so they can have an understanding of how horrible slavery really was because it humanized it and made it so where you could grasp it and understand and
Mm-hmm.
cringe, and especially if you're a woman, just knowing you could be at somebody's beck and call at any time. Like that's just horrible, you know? So, okay,
Yeah,
that's what I had for that.
yeah. No, that was good. I think you bring up some
Mhm.
good points, and I had to kind of just kind of continue that same thread. I didn't know, I guess, that process as well. I mean, like I said, so Ruben LaPierre became known as the infamous jailer, of the Devil's Half Acre, where people, plantation owners, slave owners would literally send their people to be sold there, but also as a form of punishment. So we talk
Mhm.
about Essex kind of making his full circle return in the end, and he
Mm-hmm.
was sent specifically to this jailer because he was notoriously known as a person that would like beat people near death and make a big showing of it. So like again, I don't think I really, you hear and you kind of know some of these things, but just like it was a business. Like he didn't have a
Mhm.
traditional plantation. It was literally a jail and almost just
Right.
an auction block. I mean, his
Mhm.
business was really bringing in new enslaved people, like Laria said, cleaning them up, washing them up, and preparing them to be sold. I mean, Phoebe's job was to kind of take care of some of the girls. Um, particularly the mixed race girls, because they were being sold off as a at a higher price, because again, it was perpetuating the same cycle of them, kind of being the master's mistress as well. And so I think we traditionally hear about, especially in the slavery period, about just the fields and the plantations and cotton. But I think Sadiqa did a good job of kind of painting the picture of the opposite
Mhm.
side of it. Um, the other piece I don't think I was really prepared for, with this whole mistress aspect. Like Phoebe really becoming the mistress of this jail, and like it was almost a status symbol. And there were other mistresses as well that were also mixed race or black women that carried this title, but it almost had a certain amount of prestige associated with it, where they was able to move a little freely. You know, they can go to the market, they can move throughout town, kind of
Mm-hmm.
on their own, because they had this status of being a mistress. And again, it was often frowned upon at the time to be, married, for a white man to be married to a black woman or a mixed race woman. But this mistress title kind of almost like it just fixed everything, or it was like a good cover up for it. And so I think that was kind of surprising for me to kind of hear some of the backstory of not only Phoebe but some of the other mistresses in the town as well, and kind of how they would have
Mhm.
different events together, and how they would kind of mingle and kind of have certain moments. And so, but overall, I think she did a great job of really just painting a picture of this era and this timepiece, or period of time. So, all right, coming to Kim next. What were your thoughts about just how Sadeqa Johnson really painted the picture of the antebellum South, um, in this book, Yellow Wife?
You basically you said what I was gonna say. So just briefly to recap what you just said, I just didn't really think about, because you thinking about the enslaved woman on the plantation, like her mother, that scenario of being like the mistress of the plantation owner. You see that, like I knew about that, but the city part of it, it was almost like you
Mm-hmm.
said they had their own little,
Mhm.
like not secret society, but like their own little status, like their own little club. And you know how they would walk down the street dressed really pretty, and they had a little more freedom. And I just didn't know about that, women that had that kind of life in the city. So it was just very interesting to read about, and it was just a little different. Cause I was like, wow, that's, she's going to the city, like, who's that woman over there? And they get together and they're talking about it. It was just a weird, because they're still enslaved and don't have a choice, but it's almost like you have to kind of like make the best of the situation. So in your head, kind of tricking
Mhm.
yourself to think like it's a good situation you're in, but it's really not.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was interesting, because I always just see it from the plantation point of view.
Mhm.
Okay, good. And coming to my brother Isaiah, man, to finish up this topic, what were your thoughts about? I know you had a hard time with just the book as a whole, and just some of
Mm-hmm.
the how
Mm-hmm.
graphic it was, and just and really, I guess, kind of putting yourself in that position. But how'd you feel that Sadeqa Johnson did, as far as really, I guess, kind of painting the scene? Like, she may have painted it a little too vivid for you. I don't know, but like, what were your thoughts about just the whole antebellum South time period, and how she represented in this book, Yellow Wife?
Okay, Miss Johnson, yeah, like you said, she did paint the scene. I can't take that from her. She wrote that book. She wrote that book too. I felt like I was actually in some of those rooms as well. Like a lot of stuff I did not know. The slashing part, like when Essex was actually being whipped. I think it was like 57 times he got slashed, and they're actually out there having like a type of party affair because a black man is actually getting beaten on a chain, and you bring your children and your mates to actually everybody coming around to witness this, like this is some type of glory, and we're going to this place to see this black man get whipped. Like y'all really thought that so less of people that y'all can actually participate in a situation like that. Like that was like when I thought you couldn't get in the crew, you actually disappointed me. You got even crueler. It just said the way that these people actually were treated. Like it's different when you read about it, but when you actually get it from the actual person's perspective about this is what I dealt with, this is the situation that I witnessed. I saw a baby being slid down from the middle of the actual slave owner's leg. Like it was too much. Like even the first plantation that actually Phoebe was on, like the first her, I want to say, the slave owner's wife. Like you were sleeping with exes, and when you realized that you actually thought that you was pregnant by your husband, and you saw the baby, and us, when we see those ears, we can determine what color the baby's going to be, and you're seeing that the baby's going to be brown, and you drop the baby in the middle of a pond. Like I'm like Phoebe at the point, like you could have gave the baby to one of the slaves and let that baby actually be real though. But you thought so less of your own child at that point that you rather just drown them because you didn't want to deal with a mulatto or a mixed child, but you didn't want to deal with that point around. So you rather kill them than actually raise the child. So it's just like that thought process, the cruel process. Like you hear about with 3/4 of the people, but when you actually seeing that description, you seeing how they treated us in their perspective, it clicks a little bit rougher for me on my end. Like you said, I don't read so many different African American slave literature, but I don't know why this one affected me so bad. I guess because it just was just, I'm just going through something. But you like it was rough, but
Sad. Yeah.
I can't take that Miss Johnson wrote that book. It was just like it was a lot to deal with. Like these situations and scenarios did not stop from page to page. It was another situation. This is going on. This person is being dragged away at night. My child is being shipped away, and nobody telling me like I just see a horse carriage going away, and my children gone for 3 days, and I don't know where they are. And the girls come back, but the boy stayed in. It's like you're not telling me where my child is. Like they had to live this. Imagine somebody taking your child like this. This was a lot. Like it was just a lot to to grasp. But like I said, I can't take Miss Johnson away. I learned a lot from reading that. It was just rough. It was just a
Yeah,
tough read.
yeah. No, I definitely get it. I definitely get it. Um, and yeah, even to our viewing and listening audience, we would love to hear from you guys as well. What your thoughts were about this book. Was it too much? Was it too graphic for you?
Mm-hmm.
Was it kind of you know right on time as far as just having an accurate depiction of that time period? And again, we just love to hear from you guys as far as what you may have thought about this book overall, and if you had to rate it as well, we would love to hear that. So
I want to
definitely
see these
look,
ratings.
yeah, drop us some comments. Look, send us a message. Look, send us an email. Whatever you want to do, we would love to hear from
Uh
you
huh.
guys. And your thoughts and kind of opinion about Yellow
Mm-hmm.
Wife by Miss Sadeqa Johnson. So, all right, so let's transition a little bit. So, again, for friends in the book, we don't just read books. We also like to have conversations and
Mm-hmm.
discussions about things that are going on.
Mm-hmm.
What is a trending topic, a current event, like even something that's going on amongst us, man. We just like to have talks about things that are
That's
are
true.
kind of trending in the moment. We thought about having this Drake and Kendrick discussion, but we
Oh
gonna switch it up.
gosh.
We gonna we look everybody on
Kendrick one.
YouTube.
I know Kendrick.
Everybody got their YouTube page
Yeah,
hidden and
everybody on
just dropping
YouTube and they
stuff.
podcasters have already covered that very
Mm-hmm.
well. So we're not gonna go down that rabbit hole. But one thing right now, I mean, we are in kind of basketball season. We're in playoff season.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
NBA, WNBA. We're fresh off of even I guess college sports and NCAA championship. And one of the things that really kind of has stood out this year is kind of the women's basketball. So I mean, we're
Okay,
talking
women.
about Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark, Camila Cardoza, like really changing and kind of reshaping women's basketball to a certain degree.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think it's always been competitive, but it hasn't gotten as much attention as it has over the last few years, and really has really stood out to be a big deal this year, especially with Caitlin Clark and the scoring records and the things, and just how high and much attention they've gotten, and even within the
Mm-hmm.
draft of WNBA. So it's been a lot of issues, a lot of discussions about the disparity between WNBA and the NBA. Of course, we're talking about pay and inequity in that area. But there seems to be a change in that
Mm-hmm.
narrative, and so I kind of want to get you guys' thoughts and opinions about that. Um, do you feel like this is now kind of a turning point for women's sports, particularly within like the WNBA, as far as just the getting the coverage and the attention that's needed? Um, and also, I guess, how do you feel? Are you excited about, like I said, Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, just really being like now being like focal points within like the
Mm-hmm.
WNBA? Kind of want to get you guys' thoughts and opinions about that. And I'm gonna come to the women first on this one.
Okay.
Kind of
Okay.
hear
I love
y'all
the thoughts.
perspectives. I want to hear
Okay.
from you guys. Look, Laria
Mm-hmm.
Reed. I know you a sports fanatic. So do you? what are your thoughts about just how the NBA is
Okay.
kind of shifting right now? And do you feel like it's a turning point? And also even with some of the disparities as far as the media attention,
Mm-hmm.
coverage, and also the pay. Do you feel like this may be now like we're on the the brink of a change for that sport for women?
Well, I think it's a combination of um let's just put it out there first. Let's go back. When the WNBA started, the women who were playing, they was bad. They could go toe to toe with these women any day of the week. They were great. Cheryl Swoops. I mean, our dream team for women's basketball back then in the
Mm-hmm.
90s,
Yeah.
they was
Lisa
killing.
Leslie.
They, yeah, Lisa
Mm-hmm.
Leslie, Dawn, Staley,
Stanley.
all of
Mm-hmm.
them, like all of them were great. They
Mm-hmm.
just didn't get the push that they're
Mm-hmm.
getting now, and I believe that
Mm-hmm.
that's because I hate to say it, but the NBA hadn't been as interesting as it once has been. And so people have started looking more to the women because women's basketball is really good. And they're like, you know what, these
Yeah.
girls are, and they've gotten more exposure in ESPN and more,
Mm-hmm.
they started incorporating them more. So I believe that it's been like a perfect storm kind of situation
Mm-hmm.
where it's just been the right time for it to come through. I hate to say it, but the color of a certain individual that plays, she's not black, but she's Caucasian. So now we get to see her more
Yeah.
because of that. Um,
Okay.
and and I just think that now's the time. But hey, you have to use what you use to get it through. Even though we've had plenty of African American women who have played, have done well, but right now, for whatever reason, it's happening, and so we'll
Mhm.
take it. But yeah, I just feel like it's kind of a perfect storm situation. That's why it's beginning, and it's not because of the talent, because the talent has always been there. We've
Right.
always had excellent WNBA players, especially when they first. I,
Mm-hmm.
I thought that it would have been what it is now then, because I
Mm-hmm.
mean, if you watch those women then in the 90s, even going into the early two, even to now, they've always been good. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's my. But don't get me to talking because I be getting
Don't
mad
get
about stuff like
me.
that. I'm like,
Look,
man, how all of a
who,
sudden now we starting to see the devil. Yeah, but wait a minute, let's go and look at let's go and look beneath the surface, and that's really what it is. You just gotta call stuff what it is.
Yeah.
look who ranting.
I know, right?
Look
Whole
who
rant
ranting over
because
there.
it
Who
just
ranting
bothers
over
me. I'm
there?
like, we done had good female players. I
Uh-huh.
watched all
Uh,
these women in college, and then they get to the WNBA, and we act like they just like they not that good, and they're awesome. They're
Yeah.
great, but
Yeah.
all right,
That's
I'm gonna
good.
I'm gonna stop.
Yeah, your little minty rant over here.
I know it bothers me. I just don't like injustice,
Look,
as my birthday twin says.
Yeah.
okay.
Martin Luther King, that is.
Oh wow. Okay. Okay.
Like I
Okay.
was I was wondering who you was talking about. Okay, MLK over here.
January 15th.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Kim, coming to you
Okay.
next. What are your thoughts about again? Like I said, I think the NCAA women's championship and just of course the things that have taken place there has kind of spilled over into the WNBA. Do you feel like this is like, are we on the cusp of professional women's basketball changing? What are your
Mm-hmm.
thoughts about that, or the current status of that?
I do believe so. I think I like how Loria said it was like a perfect storm situation right now. I remember when the WNBA started, dating myself, but I was just like, I remember it starting. I remember being excited about it, and like Lisa Leslie and Cheryl Swoops and all that. So I was like, oh, but they never really got the support and traction they needed because
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know. Even now, I didn't know the WNBA really doesn't turn a profit. Like it really is
Mhm.
subsidized by the NBA. Didn't
Yep.
realize that.
Mhm.
Now when Caitlin Clark and all the girls now that just got drafted and their salaries came out, people are like they're only making 70,000 or 60,000, and people are like, well, it's because nobody's buying their jersey, nobody supports the WNBA. So we talk a lot about the inequality, but people don't aren't supporting it to make it
Mm-hmm.
successful. But as Maria said, America got uh a darling in Caitlin. Even though I'm not taking anything away from her skill, she's great, but I think she
Right.
just is the perfect kind of poster child. It
Mhm.
just America and Middle America just has got behind her, put wind under her wings, and really like pushed her up to the forefront. So
Okay.
I think, in a way, guess Catch-22 is, I guess the other players, haven't gotten their just due, but because of her, it's putting a spotlight on all the different teams. And I see
Right.
now on TikTok, there's a lot of reels. People are going to get the jerseys now, that whole thing. So I
Mm-hmm.
think the momentum is there, and I think it's gonna keep going. And I was like, maybe I can go to a WNBA game, Atlanta or something. For friends, we go support the WNBA.
Yes.
But I just think it is a good time for it. I think it is a shift is happening with them. So
Right.
hopefully in the
Right.
future it gets better and better, and they start making money, and they can really get their just due with the deals and the all the things they want to do. So
It's true. It's true.
Okay. Well, look, you might see four friends in a book at the next NBA WNBA
Okay.
game. So,
hmm
Okay.
uh,
Okay.
I'm
if
ready.
somebody want to send us some tickets, hey,
Oh yeah.
we won't
Hey.
Hey,
we will gladly show up.
I will with a t-shirt on. I will.
Yes, sir. Coming to my brother next, man. What are your thoughts about just the WNBA, the evolution and the current state of women's professional basketball? How do you feel about that?
Like Kim say, a shift is happening, and hopefully this shift actually towards actually keep going up and upwards. Like you, like in the past, like nobody supported the WNBA. Like they've been around for 25 years, and they only the most profit they're making like 60 million per year. They're being subsidized by the NBA, who actually brings in a profit of 10 billion per year. So you see that difference in that pay, and I think everybody like you all said was actually glued to their seats and watched those powerhouse athletes like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese in the playoffs. Caitlin being the number one draft pick, and I think what her rookie salary was $338,000 compared to NBA's draft number one draft pick of $55 million. So you see that money, you see that difference in the pay. And you remember Brittany Griner while she was in Russia, she was playing
Mhm.
basketball over there to subsidize her pay because she wasn't getting paid here. Why we one of the richest countries in the world, but we're not paying our athletes? Like, come on. But
Mhm.
Daniel Stanley, it was a lot going on at one time. Daniel Staley, South Carolina Gamecocks head coach. That is a
Gone.
WNBA.
Dawn.
Don, I'm sorry, Daniel. I'm sorry. I'm thinking about somebody. I'm thinking about something
Daniel.
else.
I'm sorry,
Thinking
Dawn.
about something else. Don. I'm sorry, Miss Don, if you're watching. I hope you watch it.
She watching.
Don Stanley, South Carolina head coach. South Carolina head coach. Like that is a WNBA legend. Like over the
She is.
last 3 years, her team only lost 3 games. Stuff like that needs to be highlighted. Those stats needs to be shouted from
Mhm.
every ESPN, every single channel. I think now because we're all tuned in, we're actually seeing those highlights. You know what? Didn't Beyonce actually write to her and say like, me and my family actually been rooting for you? Like, who Beyonce wrote you, gave you flowers. Like seriously, like we're tuned in, we're behind her. Even for me, like if I go and see my Lakers all over the country, I can actually go and support some of these WNBA games as well too. Like I want me to go and get me an Angel Reese jersey as well too. I'm gonna be tuned in, not just on TV, but I'm gonna be at these games too. Like it starts with support from men and women. We all need to be at these games supporting our people. Like it's enough of just talking about it, but we need to be there. We need to be tuned in. Like we need to offer these women support. Like, I'm ready for these 2024 picks. So this is their first year in the WNBA. I think it's actually started over the summertime. They have a really short summer. And I'm just ready to see what these women are made of.
Yes.
Oh, look, I thought we lost Kim over there. Okay.
Oh no. I'm still here.
Nah, it's good. It's good.
I'm sorry, Miss Dunn. I'm calling your name wrong.
Daniel.
Daniel.
Daniel. I don't know why I kept saying Daniel. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Where that thumb come from? Who did that?
I
That's
know.
what I was
I was
like.
like, will it do it if I do it?
Look at me. Look at him. Give me a thumbs up when I said Beyonce. I'm sorry.
It might be AI.
I
I
look.
Something
thought
else.
I
You got to say
I
it with
thought
Yeah.
Beyonce.
I,
Beyonce.
I thought Kim was doing something in the background when she put the thumbs up.
Yeah, look, I was getting scared over here. I'm like, who did that?
Maybe the
Okay.
I was
Lord,
trying to
maybe the
see if
Lord
it would
approved.
work for
That's
me.
what I was laughing.
They approved
It's
my
like,
message.
Yeah, like that one of them AI moments. Yeah. Nah. Nah, I think that's good. I think you guys all bring up good points.
Mhm.
I think yeah, this was a perfect storm to bring the attention. I think women's
Mhm.
basketball has always been like way more fundamentally sound, like as far as
Mhm.
the execution. You just don't have the highlights. I mean, you don't
Mhm.
have the some of the some of the physicality and the interactions, players getting each other face on, on the men's side or the dunks and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
think what Caitlin brought was some of that kind of Steph Curry magic of being able to,
Yes.
shoot from well behind the line, and I think that kind of brought the excitement. Like I
Mm-hmm.
remember even in college, like we would go to the women's basketball game, and it'd be great games, but it would be like half packed arenas. But
Mm-hmm.
for the
Mhm.
men's games, I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
was always packed out. But I do think the attention is kind of shifting right now, and so hopefully this does bring some equity within like women's basketball because it is crazy to, and I get it, but I don't think the league has stood behind the women's as much as they've stood behind the men, and still,
Mm-hmm.
as a whole, we shouldn't have our athletes being better supported in other countries than they are
Right.
here. And even to Kim's point, I mean, having players to leave here, and we heard about even after we had Olympic players that were leaving, going to play on other teams, or and like
Mhm.
they weren't getting the support in the WNBA. And so I think that's sad that um, the women can't capitalize, on this professional sport, as much as the men's do. And so I hopefully this will be the catalyst to kind of spark that change for them to kind of get some equity and better pay and exposure. Because there's opportunities. I just don't think people have made a. I don't think the owner, well, not necessarily the owners, but there hasn't been as much push, for the viewership for WNBA, and
Mm-hmm.
coverage. And like I
Mm-hmm.
said, man, you hit that drought period. I think, look, people just love to watch sports, so they don't care what game is on. So, what if you put them on TV, people will
Mhm.
watch. So we just be better. I think better about marketing those things, and I think this may be the first step for that. So we shall see.
Mhm.
And they start the end of this month.
All right, so good discussion, man. We had a great book for this month, Yellow Wife by Miss Sadeqa Johnson. So again, if you guys haven't read that, definitely pick it up, check it out. Had a good discussion about just the WNBA and how it's kind of sparked some new interest, kind of on the backs of Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, and kind of just the momentum that they've brought, from NCAA into the professional realm as well. So
Mm-hmm.
love to hear from you guys. If you have any thoughts and opinions about WNBA, any players, any games, um, or even
Mm-hmm.
just speaking on the I guess the inequality of the sports between men and women's professional sports. Love to hear that from you guys as well. But I'm pretty sure if you watched this before, you know what time it is. One of our favorite segments of the show, which we entitle The Rant. 60 seconds coming from my good brother, Mr. Rant Man himself, Isaiah Tooks, where he just speaks from the heart. I mean, we never know what we're getting. He talks about, look, he might be talking about the WNBA, he might be talking about politics. I mean, whatever. He just informs us and just speaks from his heart. So,
Mm-hmm.
my brother, close. Look, I'm expecting you to close in the season out strong, man. The floor is yours. 60 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Starting now. Go.
An 81-year-old Ohio man, now indicted on murder charges, shot and killed Uber driver Loletha Hall at his home. He mistakenly believed the 61-year-old driver was working for a scammer. The victim was also sent to his house by the same scammer, but he never even called the cops. And all he did was pull out his gun and kill a semi healthy woman who could barely walk, who was never a threat to him, and she was actually pleading for help. Even if she was a scammer, that doesn't give him the right to shoot her. He could at least call the police, but he decided to follow her and point a gun at her and shoot her not one, but three times. He didn't even have to answer the door when she arrived, but he didn't even listen to her and his mind was already made up. And we've seen this before with teenager Ralph Yar who got shot for knocking on the wrong door. And somebody was trying to talk to me about unlearning the concept of racism and the social construct of race and how it's all made up. But we do everything but try to take accountability for the way black folk have been treated historically to change these systems. So now it's easier to pretend to see these laws versus actually exploring the root cause? Nope. You should be able to understand people who do not have the experience as you. And that's that on that.
That's good, man. And I don't even think I was tracking that story, man. So I thank you for even bringing it to my attention. And it kind of follows the same thread we talked about even with this book, man. Like
Yes,
we have to sometimes have these uncomfortable conversations or learn these
very.
uncomfortable things to bring the awareness and the attention that's needed. And so, brother, once again, we thank you for educating us and keeping us informed with your rant. All right, y'all. So, Four Friends in the Book. We wrapped up our book for this month.
Mm-hmm.
Yellow Wife by Miss Sadeqa Johnson. Had a discussion about the WNBA, and my brother just killed his rant once again. So, Isaiah, tell him what's going on with Four Friends in the Book in the upcoming.
Hey guys, before we let you go, we want to let you know that actually season 4 is actually almost coming to a close. But before we leave, we have one good episode left for you. It's the best of. You don't want to miss it. Give all our highlights from this season, our ups and downs, and you get to see how our actual thoughts are. L'Oreal, please let the viewers know when they can tune in.
You can tune in to watch us every third Thursday of the month at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time.
And make sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram to stay up to
Mhm.
date on what your favorite four friends are doing. And make sure to
Mhm.
subscribe to us on YouTube as well.
Please.
Absolutely, guys. Again, we just appreciate your support for rocking with us. Us
Mhm.
friends over here on Four Friends in the Book. You know, we
Right.
consider you guys friends as well. So
Uh-huh.
again, we always want to hear from you guys. So leave us any
Uh-huh.
reviews, comments, feedbacks, and again, tell your other friends to join these friends over here on
We'd love
Four
to have you.
Friends in the Book. And as always, let's continue to read, let's learn, let's grow. Let's have a
Sure.
discussion right here on Four Friends in the Book. Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Okay.